Welcome, everybody, to the second week of the Box Score Network Waiver Show. My name is Peyton, joined by my brother Parker of Two Peas on a Pod. We are here to help you again find guys off of waivers in your fantasy football leagues and hopefully help you guys, eventually get to a championship along the way. Now, last week, we gave out some suggestions, some good, some somewhat bad, I guess I would say. Um, now, I would say the majority of them were pretty helpful. Justin Fields was maybe the only big miss that we had, which I will say I also started Justin Fields in a league, so you're not alone if the advice did not really do you much good. But Parker, we're gonna have some picks for the people here, and I'm gonna let you go ahead first. We have our three categories: burner, mid, and stash. And do you have anybody in the burner category this week?
I do not have anybody in the burner category this week.
I had somebody that I considered for the burner, but ended up I put them in the mid category because I kind of think we got burnt a little bit with Justin Fields. And I will start with them first because they're the first person in my mid category. It's Daniel Jones, a guy who has been QB3 and QB7 through the first 2 weeks of the fantasy football season. Is QB2 overall as a result of that. He's currently owned in only 35% of leagues. Now, the thing is, he's going to be a hot commodity because of a couple of things. J.J. McCarthy's out for a few weeks, right? Joe Burrow just went out probably for the rest of the fantasy season, more than likely. Jane Daniels could be out next week. So you're going to have like a few guys in your league who have those three as maybe their starting quarterback who are going to be in need of a starter this upcoming week. And so I think that if you don't need Daniel Jones, you're probably not going to go after him, which is why I didn't really put him in the burner section because really you're going to be battling against the other guys who, don't have those quarterbacks anymore. So you're probably going to need to bid a little bit for him considering he's been a top, 10 QB locked and loaded early on in the season. And a lot of that is because of the rushing threat that he is inside the red zone and the goal line. He's had 3 rushing touchdowns thus far. And I mean, I don't see those opportunities going away anytime soon. And because of the rushing baseline, he, in a weird way, he almost is kind of like what we thought Justin Fields was after week 1. So,
Right.
so as a result, he is my first pick for this week's waiver show in the mid category. I would probably say if you're one of the teams that lost the quarterbacks, especially Joe Burrow, I would probably say that spending somewhere between like 15 to 20% of your fab is probably not too far fetched, especially if you need some kind of long term starter. That sounds crazy because it's Daniel Jones, but he's really good in fantasy and he always has been, depending on how the rest of the team has performed. Parker, who is your first player?
So I'm gonna start with somebody that is a stash on the list for me,
Okay.
and that's Hunter Renfro.
Oh,
He kind
okay.
of seems like he could be a gadget guy for Bryce with a lot of short pass catch like out routes, and the Hunter Renfro route tree. We all know what it is. It's the short out routes, slants, in routes. Maybe a 10-yard curl. Sit down and get open type deal. But I mean, he was targeted, I believe, 9 times this week. Had a touchdown catch. He just seems like like I said, he's a stash. It's not like a guy I'm saying go grab him and put him in your starting lineup. Like go grab him. Maybe the Bryce to Tech connection isn't as strong as we all think it's going to be throughout the season. Maybe Renfro steals a couple of those Adam Thielen catches that are going to be missing this year because Adam Thielen was very fantasy productive for this team the last couple seasons. So he's a guy that I just think is like pick him up. Don't I mean I wouldn't go spend any much fab on like just go pick him up if he's free. Scoop him, put him on your bench for a couple weeks, see what he does with Bryce Young in this offense because Bryce Young does have a tendency to have to get rid of it a lot faster with the offensive line problems that they're also going to have on top after this week. 2 guys going out in their offensive line. So Hunter Renfro.
And I mean Xavier Leggett looking like a big bust really really early in his career,
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately. And Leggett is not the kind of like short area connoisseur that Renfro is. And the
Right.
other thing that Renfro can benefit from is probably a lot of garbage time where the Panthers are going to be playing from behind a lot in these games, and that's going to force them to throw the ball. And when it's not Tet, it's probably going to be Hunter Renfro. So it's actually not a good little stash by you. My other pick in the mid category, and this is really because I think that he's going to be a hot name this week, that you're going to kind of have to spend maybe like, somewhere between like 5 to 10 fab on him to get him is Troy Franklin. He's only owned in 8% of leagues, but he's very quickly becoming like one of the favorite targets for Bo Nix in his second year. They were teammates at Oregon, so it does make sense they have a built-in chemistry. He had 6 targets in week 1, which isn't bad. He only had like I think 4 for 41, but in week 2, he had 9 targets, caught 8 of them for 89 yards and a touchdown, and he even had like a designed run for 11 yards. So they definitely want to use him in the offense. And if you're gonna go up against defense, even if it's a good defense, like we have the Colts in this past week, right? You could still be a benefactor as the secondary pass catcher because Cortland Sutton is hogging all the attention as the outside guy. So to me, this is more of a guy that you can pick up, and if you're, struggling to find like a flex that has a lot of upside on a week to week basis. I mean, he dropped 20 points this week, and with Bo Nix at quarterback, Broncos probably have enough passing offense to where you can get some good productive games from Troy Franklin throughout the season. So, Parker, who is your second player for this week?
So this is another stash player I have.
Okay.
And it's really just based off of the performance I saw this week. He had 7 targets, 5 receptions, 57 yards, and a touchdown. So he had 15 fantasy points, and he dropped a wide open touchdown. And this is Diami Brown for the Jacksonville Jaguars. He's not a mid. He's not a burner. Don't do what you got to do to go pick him up. This is just a guy I see Trevor Lawrence liking in the red zone. Like Trevor Lawrence came down, found him for 1 touchdown, put the ball right in his hands for another touchdown. I know he dropped it. I know that maybe drops a little bit of QB confidence. But the Jags don't have like just an amazing plethora of options to go to, right? They have Brian Thomas, who's always going to be marked by the number 1 corner. You got Travis Hunter, who has like what I read, like the lowest yards per catch this
Yeah.
year as a receiver. Like just not really getting a whole lot done downfield, like some people might have thought he would be, um, especially after the catch. So I mean, this is just a guy that could sneakily be a good option in the Jacksonville offense. So I think that this is a decent stash early on in the season.
I don't disagree, especially considering that they're not really using Travis Hunter like a lot of us thought they would on offense. It's a lot of like screens and short area stuff. So which could change, but for now, De'Ami Brown seems to be more of a downfield threat than Hunter is, which is valuable in that Jags offense. Now, my last stash or my last player is a stash, I should say, and it's a guy who probably he's kind of teetering on the line where like maybe he should be in the mid category, but for now I'll put him in the stash category only because I think that most people won't be picking him up for the sake of realizing that who he's having to play behind. But it's Tyler Algier, 33% owned on Sunday night. He did not have a good week 1, but really he didn't have to because it wasn't really getting used a lot at all. And in the cases where the Falcons are going to be able to kind of like salt away games and just run the ball and control the games, if their defense is able to play like they did on Sunday night, they're probably not going to just run Bijan into the ground. And Tyler Algier, who has had productivity in the past, I would argue that he could be a starting running back in the league, depending on if a team, or like if whenever his contract's up, I wonder if he's able to sign somewhere as a starter. He is a quality running back, and he had 16 carries, 76 yards and a touchdown, and had a reception for 4 yards. He finished as the RB15, and that's with Bijan Robinson finishing as like what RB3, I think he was. So the fact that you had Bijan, who was able to be a top 5 running back on the week, and still Algier was able to actually get work and be productive enough to where like if you were an RB0 type strategy in your drafts, and let's just say like me, for instance, I have a league where I went 0 RB and I took Isaiah Pacheco as one of my starting running backs, right? You're at this point you're so much better off just taking Tyler Algier and sticking him in place of Pacheco, because even if Bijan is going to have the week that he did this past week, like Algier's still going to get some work because of the game script. And so I think that the reason why I say like he might be teetering on a mid is because maybe you have to spend a couple extra bucks to get him. But the thing is, Bijan goes down. He seems like you're going to be able to play him if you really, really need to. Like he's not the worst kind of running back to like have as a desperation play. But if Bijan goes down, we know exactly what Tyler Algier can be. And he can be like a borderline top 15, maybe even like bottom end of the RB1 spectrum. So that is all my picks. You have one more pick for us, don't you, Parker?
I do have one more pick, and this is another stash guy. Sorry I was so vanilla with it this week, but Jaden Reed out with a collarbone, right?
Mm-hmm.
After this week. Dontavian Wicks, I think, is somebody that might benefit a little bit more from this happening. That being said, like this week's a perfect week to go pick him up and find out what he is because he's playing the Cleveland Browns. What the Cleveland Browns are one thing they're good at is they have decent defensive backs and a decent pass rush. So that being said, Dontavian Wicks could get a lot of looks this week, knowing that Romeo Dobbs is now being covered up by probably the number one corner there. You got Greg Newsome, who's a great slot corner, who's probably going to take a lot of Matthew Golden action there. So I think that this is a good way to figure out is this is the perfect time for them to use him this week. So this is a good time to maybe pick him up, put him on your bench. If you see that he's a valuable option, hold on to him. If not, drop him, and I'll give you a new guy next week to go pick up. But this is a guy that I think with the Jaden Reed collarbone could be a beneficiary of that happening.
And Wicks is the kind of guy like you're gonna know right away if you can drop him or not. It's not gonna
Yeah,
be a
yeah.
situation where you pick him up and you're gonna have to wait a couple weeks to figure it out. If he's just not involved, just drop him, and you
I
don't
mean,
have to
he
stress it.
tripled his targets from week one to week two. Like he had two targets in week one. Jaden goes out and boom, he has six targets coming into this week. I wonder if they game plan for him this week now. Like I wonder if they just
Yeah,
didn't game plan for him specifically, and now they're like, okay, well Jaden Reed's out. Let's give him a couple more targets. Like maybe he comes into this week and has nine targets instead of six. And that's a guy that you can flex if he's doing something with those targets.
and when Wicks has been involved, he has been very fantasy relevant. Like he's had some really big games whenever he's a guy who's a go to for the Packers. So good pick by you, Parker. I think a couple of these guys should be able to help our fantasy players long term and even in the short term in some cases. But in the meantime, Parker, until next week, thank you for joining me. Good luck on waivers. Hopefully you get your guys. Maybe you'll get some of our guys that we pointed out. But we will talk to you next week.